You will never be English. You are African Caribbean.
But why will I never be English?
Because you're African Caribbean.
Look,
I can't say to you.
At what point? What about my kids? What are my kids?
You're British, but you're not English.
Well, that's the point I think you're making, and I'm disagreeing with that. Tell me, what do you think? What do you think?
If I was born in the Caribbean as a white person, I certainly wouldn't call myself.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid
Caribbean.
A caller named Jean told David Lammy to his face that he could never be English. British, yes. But English, never, because he's African Caribbean. Lammy could have got angry. Instead, he did something far more powerful. He asked her one simple question and then gave a history lesson she wasn't expecting. Let's watch it together. And before I tell you to like and hit that subscribe button, please allow me the chance to earn that from you.
You keep saying that you are African Caribbean, which is fine, but how can you be African Caribbean and English? I couldn't be African. I'm English, but I certainly could not call myself African Caribbean.
You could be Irish, though. You could have Irish.
No, I'm not Irish.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
you could
Scottish.
be. You could be.
No, I'm not. Because I have looked my name right the way back to the Middle Ages, my maiden name, and I'm Anglo-Saxon.
Great.
But you will never be English. You are African Caribbean.
But why will I never be English?
Because you're African Caribbean.
Look,
I can't say to you.
At what point? What about my kids? What are my kids? What are my kids?
I can't say I'm African Caribbean.
What? Yeah, but the truth is, Jean, just a little bit of history on this. Britain, 400 years ago, started going out into the world. It colonised and conquered a lot of the world. A lot of the world has ended up coming back to the mother country. My parents were part of that generation who came from the Caribbean. When I took a DNA test, I actually had Scottish in me, probably because as a result of that, someone somewhere, frankly, got their leg over with one of my ancestors, and I've got Scottish blood running through me. I've said that gently, but it could have been horrendous. Let's be clear about that. And here I am, having grown up in this country, have been born of this country, and actually, the truth is, it's a myth that there's one English ethnicity. There's not, because England has always been a country in which Huguenots, Danes, all sorts of people have passed through. So when you say you are English, I'm not saying that doesn't mean something to you and matter hugely.
It does.
Because there are probably, as you put it, years and years, hundreds of years of experience of that. But it is to say that for me, the fact that I was born here and the fact that my sensibilities are English mean that I want to claim that heritage as well. Now, I'm very comfortable saying I'm British, Black British. Of course I am. And I'm very, very proud. No one could say I wasn't, because I talk about it all the time, about my Caribbean roots. And I know the Caribbean very well. But it's to say that I'm English. Sorry? What?
You're British, but you're not English.
Well, that's the point I think you're making, and I'm disagreeing with that. Tell me, what do you think? What do you think?
If I was born in the Caribbean as a white person, I certainly wouldn't call myself.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid
Caribbean.
You obviously have you ever been to the Caribbean, Jean?
I haven't. No, I haven't had the fortune.
Well, then you probably don't realise that in countries like Barbados, there are significant white Caribbean populations who have been there for hundreds of years, and they are significantly more Caribbean than I am.
Well, all
Didn't
I
know
can
that,
say
did
is
you?
the whole world is polluting everybody the way it's going.
What's that phrase, polluting?
It is.
Why is it polluting, Jean?
Because you are what you are. You are where you are born.
But hang on, Jean.
Your inheritance. It's your inheritance.
Jean, I can tell that you are more senior than I am in age. So I want to be polite.
No, don't do that.
In this conversation. Well, that's how I was brought up, that you're polite to your seniors, Jean. But what I'm saying is the word pollution Where's that word pollution come from? It's a very negative way.
Well, I'm sorry for that,
but it is negative. It's a negative way to describe the fact that people meet one another, they fall in love, they have kids, they move borders, sometimes through war, sometimes through economic reasons, and they become what they become when they are of that country. And just as you can be in America, and you can be African American, or you can be Italian American, or you can be Irish American. How is it that here in England you can only claim that Englishness effectively, Jean, if you are white?
The idea Jean rings in with, that a black man born and raised here can be British but never English, and that mixing is polluting, is wrong, and it's an old and ugly idea. But watch what David Lammy does with it, because it's the opposite of what you'd expect. He doesn't shout her down, he outthinks her with more grace than most of us could manage, and he does it while going out of his way to be kind to an elderly caller. Firmness about the idea, gentleness toward the person, that's hard to pull off. He makes it look easy. Here's the claim. Jean tells him, flatly, you will never be English. You are African Caribbean. And Lammy doesn't get angry. He asks the simplest question available, why would I never be English? And her answer is a circle. Because you're African Caribbean. That's the whole argument. It doesn't explain anything, it just restates the conclusion. And rather than pounce, Lammy gives her the history instead. Britain, he reminds her, spent 400 years going out into the world, colonizing and conquering huge parts of it. And a lot of that world eventually came back to the mother country. His own parents were part of that generation, arriving from the Caribbean. That's not an accident of history. It's the direct consequence of Britain's own empire. You cannot spend centuries claiming the world, and then act surprised when the world claims you back. Then, the masterstroke, so gentle you almost miss how sharp it is. Lammy took a DNA test and found Scottish ancestry in himself, the likely result, he says lightly, of someone somewhere getting their leg over with one of his ancestors. He adds, quietly, that it could have been horrendous. Let's be clear about that. In one sentence, he's acknowledged the brutal history of how that blood got mixed and turned it into the proof of his point, because there is no such thing as one pure English ethnicity. There never was. England has always been a place that Huguenots, Danes, all sorts of people passed through and became part of. The pure Englishness Jean is defending never existed. Then, the flashpoint, the word the whole thing turns on. Jean says all this mixing is polluting everybody, and Lammy stops, picks the word up, and holds it to the light. Why is it polluting, Jean? Where does that word come from? Because that word is the tell. You don't reach for pollution to describe human beings by accident. It's a word about contamination, about purity and its opposite. And Lammy names, calmly, what it actually describes. People meeting one another, falling in love, having children, moving across borders and becoming part of where they end up. That's not pollution. That's just people. And notice the courtesy underneath it all. At one point he says, I can tell you're more senior than I am, so I want to be polite. He means it. He's dismantling her entire worldview while being careful of her feelings as an older woman. That's not weakness. It's the confidence of someone who knows he doesn't need to raise his voice, because the argument is already his. He lands it with the question that exposes the whole thing. In America, you can be African American, Italian American, Irish American, and nobody blinks. So how is it that here, in England, you can only claim Englishness, Jean, if you were white? And there it is, stripped of the history and the euphemisms and the word pollution. That's all the argument ever was. Englishness, for Jean, has one entry requirement, and it's skin colour. Lammy just walked her, gently, all the way to the place where she'd have to say it out loud. That's the theme this channel keeps returning to. Belief over facts, but here the belief is about identity itself, propped up by a history that didn't happen and a biology that isn't real. Lammy didn't beat it with anger, He beat it with the actual past, his own dinner, and a refusal to let one ugly word go unexamined. So no sarcastic sign-off today, just admiration for a man who answered contempt with a history lesson and still found room to be kind. If it was worth watching, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe if you'd like more. Englishness was never a colour.